Hi friends, welcome back to another video. It's your girl Berna, and today I'm here to share with you tips on pattern reading. If it's something you're interested in, please keep on watching. I'll be sharing my top 10 tips on crochet pattern reading, so do stick around, subscribe, and do not forget to like, share, and leave a positive comment down below. To begin with, we need to know exactly what a pattern is, okay, because not everybody might understand a pattern. So this is just basically a set of instructions or steps that you keep on following, and it eventually leads to something. It's a set of steps that reiterate over and over again until like you get to a final outcome. Okay, so there are different patterns we work with. They usually have, yeah, as far as crochet is concerned, they're just basically made up of different crochet stitches that eventually build to something. It might be like a blanket, a top, a scarf, a dress. So it's just basically a set of steps and guidelines that eventually reiterate to give you a finished outfit or product. Okay, so the first tip I have noted down here is understanding the project that you'll be working with. As I already told you guys, like crochet is so wide, so you may be wanting to make a blouse, a blanket, a scarf. So before you start any pattern reading, you need to have an idea or an insight of what the project is all going to be about, and this is just basically going to just give you a plan to know exactly where you're going. It's like having a roadmap to like a trip. Okay, so you need to understand the project that you're making. Secondly, we have the levels of crochet. So what level of crochet does the pattern favor? It might be a beginner friendly pattern, it might be an intermediate pattern, or it might be for advanced crocheters. So usually you will see that the beginner patterns are also labeled as easy patterns, so you need to also know where you fall, because you don't want to be a beginner getting onto a pattern that's for advanced crocheters. That's going to be so frustrating. So you need to determine what level or skill level of crochet you're at, and usually in the patterns that we have, these are usually actually listed. If you look at patterns that you've read before, and if any of you have read patterns before, but usually they note it down somewhere that this is for beginners or intermediate or advanced. Yeah, so you need to know the level of crochet that you're on. Point number 3 that I have here is the terms used in the pattern. So as you all know, in crochet we have either the UK terms or the US terms, and for me I find that US terms have been the ones that I've worked with from the time I started crocheting, because they're the ones that I understand most. But if you're somebody who has been using UK terms, you need to know how these translate back. For example, if the pattern is written in US terms, you need to know how they translate back to the UK terms, okay, so that you don't get confused. It depends on what you really used to as a crocheter. So like I have some examples here. For example, in the US we say double crochet, whereas in the UK this is known as the treble crochet. In the US we say single crochet, and this is known as double crochet in the UK terms. US terms we have the half double crochet, whereas in UK terms we have the half treble crochet, and so on and so forth. But this requires like a lot of research. You can make your research and determine what are the UK terms for crochet and what are the US terms for crochet. But as I said, if the pattern is in terms that you're not used to, you need to know how they translate back to the terms that you're used to. I don't know if that makes sense. So if you're used to the US terms and your pattern is in UK terms, you need to know how that pattern's UK terms translate back to the US terms. So that's very important. And then number 4, we have the abbreviations. You need to familiarize yourself with the abbreviations used in the pattern, because usually as the pattern goes on, you realize like not everything is written in full, because I think they also don't want to get so wordy, and so you need to understand what the different abbreviations mean. For example, you might see abbreviations like CH, which will stand for like chain. You will see abbreviations like DC, which will stand for double crochet, SS, which will stand for slip stitch, and rep, which will mean like repeat. So you just need to also know, as you read through the pattern, you need to know exactly what these abbreviations mean. Point number 5, we have the materials needed. So what materials does the project or the pattern require you to use. Okay, this is very important because why we need to know exactly what we are going to use. We don't want to be starting a pattern today and then suddenly you get stuck because maybe you don't have a certain thing. Maybe it requires you to have maybe like 10 balls of yarn. You only have like 2. It requires you to maybe to have a certain hook size and you don't have it on you. So you need to first make sure all the materials that are listed, you're able to get a hold of them before you even begin. Okay, so these materials might include a hook, and also this hook you need to know the size that is needed for the project, and then you need to know the yarn size and how many balls will be needed. You need to have stitch markers, for example, a tape measure, etc. Because really different projects require different materials, but these are just like the basic ones that I've listed. Okay, but make sure you get an insight of all the different materials that you'll be working with. Point number 6 that I have, you need to know the gauge of the pattern, and also the term gauge is also known as tension in UK terms. Okay, what does gauge mean? This is something actually that I used to dodge a lot at the beginning of my crochet journey. Like I used to see the word gauge in like the pattern papers. Okay, like for example, you might see like a pattern paper like this. This is just one that I got from like yarn that I once used, and I would always see this thing called gauge, and I'm like, is it really needed anyway? And till I realized, like at the time I was making something and it turned out really looking, I don't know, so small, and I'm like, what happened? I used the hook size, I used the yarn. So what do we mean by gauge? A gauge is basically a template that like you follow before you start a project. Okay, it's like making a sample of your work, depending on what the pattern writer has stated down in that gauge pattern. Like it just basically means you're measuring, you're making a swatch or a sample of some sort to determine whether your hook size and your yarn size will give you exactly what the pattern creator has made. Like you'll get exactly their same results, whether it is size or shape. Like nothing will change. Like for example, as I said on this written pattern that I found on a piece of yarn, here they noted down a gauge of 17.5 single crochets and 18 rows, which will be equivalent to 4 inches. So that means if you make a simple sample of these 17.5 single crochets for a total of 18 rows, and it equals to 4 inches exactly, it means that whatever hook you have used and whatever yarn you have used is accurate enough for the project at hand. Okay, but if you actually do this and then you get something that's different, it means you either have to lower your hook size or up it up a bit, depending. So you have to keep on making different samples until you get these 4 inches to ensure that you get the accurate hook size and yarn. I don't know if this makes sense, but you can make more research. This is just how I understood it, and when I started measuring the gauge, I actually started getting more accurate results whenever I would read patterns. Okay, so it is actually important that you measure it, because if you dodge it, actually most times you'll find that sometimes your work is off or it might look not as expected. But there are chances when you get lucky, but please do measure your gauge before you start any written pattern project. And then number 7 here I have sizing. You need to pay attention to whether the pattern includes a sizing chart. Okay, especially if the pattern is for like garments or wearable pieces. Okay, and the sizing charts, honestly, in my own opinion, they are a bit tricky to work with. Personally, the times I've worked with them, sometimes I find that I don't know, like they are not so accurate. And I would advise that you please take your own measurements for your client or your person that you want to make maybe a piece for. Like I think it's always safer to know the measurements, the actual measurements, by actually taking them. However, if you're unable to, you can always just add some ease. I usually add ease for the moments when I can't do anything about it and I'm not sure, but I usually add like a centimeter or two. If like the chest is 36, I'll add like a centimeter or 2 centimeters to it, just to be safe. Okay, so just make sure you actually take the measurements yourself preferably, but if you cannot, then make sure you follow the sizing chart as well. And then number 8, I have to following the instruction manual carefully. Usually the instruction manual is one that just it gives you like guidelines on like um should I say like numberings and symbols used throughout the pattern. Like you have to also pay attention to the information that they usually give in the brackets. Usually the information they be like, maybe for this and this age we shall list like the measurements in brackets, or we shall use these color numbers for like this age, maybe age 5 6 we shall use color numbers maybe like blue and pink. So you need to look at the instruction manual carefully. It guides you on what the symbols mean, what the colors mean. Like you can just sort of determine exactly what you're supposed to do when you look at that instruction manual, so that you don't get so confused as you go. Usually sometimes I would find like there is a star and I'm like, what does this asterisk mean? So you need to know all those from the instruction manual, which is always given in the written pattern. And then point number 9, I have paying attention to the illustrations within the written pattern. And sometimes these written patterns do feature diagrams which can guide you also on like measurements, and how to maybe work certain parts of the project. So you need to look at them, because sometimes they have like arrows, they might have labels on them, they might guide you, like maybe say if you're making like a blouse and it shows you maybe like from the bottom to like the armhole, how many inches like should we work, where should we like decrease or something like that. So you need to make sure that these illustrations are also your guide when you're executing the project. And then lastly, point number 10 is storage of your patterns. Yeah, storage or saving them. Like when you have patterns that you have bought or that you have gotten from yarns, you have to make sure that you find where to keep them. Like maybe you can have like a folder on your laptop or your computer, or maybe if like there are such written patterns like these that maybe you find on yarn covers, like make sure you do not discard them. Like make sure you have like a file or a little bag where you can store them, because these, you never know like what you can modify from these patterns, or you never know what you can do with them in the future. It's always important to keep them, because sometimes people come back for the same items and you don't want to start again rebuying the patterns, or maybe you get frustrated looking for where you put those that were written on paper. So it's important that you store your patterns very well. That's it guys for my top 10 tips. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like and share with those you think would be interested. Do not forget to subscribe, and do leave a comment below on what else you'd want to see me create on this channel. I hope this is going to help somebody out there as far as pattern reading is concerned. See you guys in another video. Bye. Hi friends, welcome back to another video. My god.